The train of green technologies leaving the station. It's time to get on board now. If you get on board now, that can serve as an engine of growth, can bring jobs, bring new development.
Hello, this is the weekly Tradecast, a podcast brought to you by UNCTAD, the UN's trade and development body. I'm Sarah Toms. We're exploring how major events are shaping trade and development and how that affects billions of people around the world. This week, as the UN releases its Technology and Innovation Report, we're talking about why developing countries need to embrace green tech and why the time is now. Around the world, countries are seeking solutions to protect the environment and keep economies growing. For developing countries, the UNCTAD report says renewable energy and frontier technologies offer opportunities to build important industries and catch up economically while also addressing climate change. But to avoid getting left even further behind, the green transition must be made early. With its readiness index tracking progress, the report says the opportunities are vast, but that developing countries need immediate support to gather the tools and skills they need for a greener future. For more on the challenges and the solutions is UNCTAD economist Clovis Frady from the Division on Technology and Business. Now, the report makes connections between climate change and inequality and also technology. What are the benefits and also the trade-offs for developing countries wanting to make progress in all of these three areas?
Yeah, this is a very interesting point. The report makes that connection between climate change, inequalities, technologies, but it's important to point out that the report is not saying that countries need to embrace green technology innovation because of climate change.
Right.
They need to do that because that's the new technological paradigm. If it's green, it will grow, and countries can grow with that. So the message of the report is, the train of green technologies leaving the station. It's time to get on board now. If you get on board now, that can serve as an engine of growth, can bring jobs, can bring new development. But if you don't do it, it will leave the station and leave the countries behind, and the inequality between countries will only grow. So we know that historically we have these big revolutions, technological revolutions. Now the last one, the digital one. So now we are at the beginning of a new revolution. This new one is based on new digital technologies, AI, drones, robots, Internet of Things, but also green technologies, green hydrogen, electronic vehicles, solar, wind. So of course, countries that have a better stance on the digital will be better positioned. And we do have this index, as you mentioned, the Frontier Technology Index, and we see clearly developed countries, they are the top. The first five, US, Sweden, Singapore, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. Emerging economies, they also are well positioned, but in the second tier, let's say. You have Brazil in 35, you have China, 31.
So Clovis, tell me a bit more about this readiness index then. How does it work and what is it telling us overall?
So it's trying to forecast, to look a little bit on the future. Look at what countries are today and see what are the capabilities to adopt these new technologies. So we look at things like the development on ICT, because this is based on that, on skills, research and development, on their industry activity, and then finance. So it gives us a snapshot of what is the situation now. Clearly, countries have to do more. They need to take this window of opportunity of these new technologies. It's not only to produce these technologies, but use these technologies. When you use these new technologies, you can increase the productivity of the things that you do at high levels. So countries can use that to catch up and close this inequality between countries that we see today. But that requires effort for countries. And what we see is, in the particular case of green technologies, it requires policy, it requires innovation, industrial and environment policies that are aligned to bring the capabilities of countries to be able to adopt these technologies.
How do these developing countries build up the right resources, and what kind of support do they need, and who needs to provide it?
For sure, the main responsibles to build these capabilities are the countries themselves. So through policy, they should be able to provide infrastructure and the environment to create the demand for these products. The private sector in these countries are able to provide these products and services that use these technologies, but also through demonstration projects, through investment on research and development, through clusters, to build the capability of the private sector to be able to enter this new wave of technological revolutions, to use the technology, know how to use them, how to adopt them. But for sure, for most developing countries, these will be new sectors, what we call infant sectors. Mm-hmm. So as infant sectors, they need some kind of protection. So you give some time for your industry to grow. And the trade regime sometimes is not really aligned to give that protection to developing countries to grow their infant industries. So what we are asking and calling this report is to have this alignment between what countries would like to do in terms of climate. All countries have pushed for climate action, and that means to give the opportunity for developing countries to use and adopt these technologies.
Can this green transition and the necessary support really happen, though, with the required urgency that you've been talking about? If not, what are the consequences?
It is possible. And we saw that when countries had to respond to a crisis, as in the case of the COVID-19, they were able to align the trade rules to what was really required on the ground. Mm. So clearly it's a matter of countries get together and understand that is needed. Perhaps what is most important is for developing countries to understand that the timing is very important, and they have to do now. So they have to do their national policies, have to be aligned and to go in this direction now. And at the international level, they have to work together to facilitate that process. But you have to have the two sides of the coin. What would be the effect if that is not done? We will see the repetition of the previous technological revolutions. You know, before the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s, all countries were about the same. The difference between two people randomly in the world was their class. Now it's totally different. What really makes difference is the country you were born, is the lottery of the birthplace. Right. So with every technological revolution, the gap between developed and developing countries just get bigger and bigger. Today is over $40,000, the difference between the average income per capita of developing countries and developed countries. So what will happen if developing countries will miss this wave of technological change? Further inequality between countries. And what is worse, also on top of that, slower action towards climate change. So because the green technology not only will be the source of engine of growth for these countries, they also can help to tackle climate change. So the consequences are really severe.
Now, what are the specific areas of green innovation then where developing countries can make rapid progress or even have a competitive advantage? Where should they be looking?
We have covered three areas that we believe that are very important. First is to develop and use renewable energies. So you have solar, wind, biomass, green hydrogen, and you see that you have countries already moving in that direction. At this moment, all countries are about at the same level. Developing countries that are learning and figuring out how to create value out of that. The second one, using these new technologies like Industry 4.0 technologies, AI, robots, Internet of Things, to green global value chains. So this creates opportunities of business for developing countries. But by using these new technologies, they can reduce energy consumption. They can find better ways to do the maintenance of the productions. The third way is to diversify. Most developing countries are still very reliant on few commodities, few sectors. So let's try to find the paths for diversification that are both more technologically advanced, that bring more technology to the country, add value, and at the same time are more carbon efficient.